Hello and welcome back. In our last video, we began to set up our Chrome extension, our Pokemon card Chrome extension, and we started setting up some of the files. We did our manifest.json, we set up our popup.html, our popup.css, our popup.js, along with a README file and a file of assets, which I provided for you. If you're not at this point, you need to go back and watch the previous video where we set up all of that stuff. But in today's video, we're actually going to be building out all of the HTML for our entire project that we are building today. So with that, I'm going to get right into it. If you are familiar with HTML, you should understand a lot of what we're doing. If not, you will need a basic understanding of HTML. We're going to be using just some basic tags, including section, div, h1, h2, h3, I think, maybe some horizontal rules, some paragraphs, and so forth. So if you know your basic HTML, you should be good at this point. And the first thing that we want to do is take a look at our design. So here on the right, I have some basic understanding of the design, and we can start breaking down what we have, right? So it's a card. There seems to be like a smaller inner card. Then we have a title, right? The name of the Pokemon, its hit power, a horizontal rule. Then we have an image with some sort of background here. We have another container here, right? Like a little wrapper with this gold edge. And then inside we have like a lighter yellow, along with a title, some numbers here, which would represent, I think, accuracy, and a description below that. So we have two of those, and then we have these three little pills sort of down on the bottom that have a title and some numbers inside of them. So we can start looking at this actual card and break this down into the sections that we're going to build for the HTML. So very basically, we can see on the very outer part, there's probably a section here. Maybe this is another div, the inner card. We have headings, paragraph, horizontal rules, maybe an image tag here. Again, more titles, paragraphs, more containers like divs here. Just repeated. So very basic design, but just by switching up those elements and adding different colors and gradients, we can get something that looks pretty cool, like a little Pokemon card. So in my browser here, I actually have both what we've built in the last video, which is just this very basic Chrome extension that says the Pokedex, and then also the one that we're aiming for, right? So here's an example of Kingler. This is sort of what we're trying to build, okay? And what I've done here too in this is I've broken down this card into different sections just by highlighting each of them, right? So we can see like all the blue outlines are basically some sort of div, and the white ones are some sort of text element. So we can start to see sort of how this is broken down. So I'm going to start coding in HTML. I would like if you would follow along with me. You're going to get a good understanding of how we build this whole thing just by building some of the HTML. And as we go, I'm going to add IDs and classes to our elements so that we can identify them with our CSS, which is going to be in the next video, okay? So with that, I'm going to start by erasing the Pokedex, and our body tags are going to represent basically everything that we see, right? So if we notice, I erased the Pokedex and that is gone, but you can see our body is, tiny right now, and we have to add all of these different elements. Now, what you're going to notice today is we're just doing the HTML, so the styling is not going to be there, and we're just going to use some placeholders for some of the content because we're going to change that dynamically using JavaScript in the last video. But for now, we can just use things like Pokemon name, hit power, and make up some content here. So the first thing that we have is this outer container, okay, and that's going to be our body. So we already have our body tag. But inside of that, we have sort of a smaller card. That's the dark orange card that you see. And we're going to use a section tag for this. So I'm going to type section, And there we go. We have a section. Now, what you'll notice is a lot of these things are nested, right? So everything, all the content inside of this is nested inside of this section. So in our HTML, everything inside of this is going to sit nested inside of our section tag, okay? And before I move on to that stuff, I'm going to add an ID here. So I'm going to do ID equals card, and we're just going to call that card. And then right inside the card, I like to start from the top and work my way down as I build these things out. So right inside, we have this, we can call this a container here, the blue outline that goes left and right, and it holds both the Pokemon name and the HP, okay? So for that, we're going to use a div tag, and the name is going to be an H1, and I'm just going to say Pokemon name. I'm going to put that there just so I know what it is, right? So that's our most important thing on this entire card is the name of the Pokemon. So I'm putting that in an H1 tag. And typically we reserve H1 tags for the most important headline of a page, and there's usually only one of them, okay? And then below that, I'm going to use a P tag, a paragraph tag for the HP, and I'm just going to put 40 HP. I'm just making up a number there. So there we go. We have that section, right? So we have the blue outline is our div, and then we have an H1 and a P inside of there. And of course, I want to give all of these IDs as well. So this one is going to be an ID of title underscore container. And this one is going to be an ID of name, because that's its name. And this one, as you may guess, is going to be an ID of HP for hit power, okay? So pretty simple. There we go. We're already there. We're getting there. We have the outer card, the inner card, and the title. And if I scroll up, you can see there's also a horizontal rule under the title. It's just blocked by the blue outline here. So I'm going to add that as well. And that's going to go below our div. So I'll go on line 13, press enter. So I'm on line 14. And then I'm going to add our horizontal rule. And if you remember, that is a self-closing tag. So we just have our HR and then a backslash and our little caret. Okay, there's our horizontal rule. The next thing that we have is an image, right? And if you notice, we sort of have this square behind it, and I'm going to use a div to represent that and actually put the image inside of that, okay? And the image is just going to spill out. It's going to be larger than that. So what we're going to do is create a div, okay? And this is going to be the background div that you see here. Sorry for this, keeps showing up here. Okay, so this is the background div that we have, the little gradient background. And then inside of that, we're going to put our image. And again, images are self-closing tags. So our container, image container right here, we're going to give that an ID equal to, you may guess, image underscore container. And then our actual image, we're going to give an ID of just image. And images need a source attribute, an SRC attribute, which tells the path name to the image that we want to go there. And for now, we're going to use a placeholder image, which is in our assets folder, and it's this Pokeball. Okay, so before the Pokemon appears, there will be a Pokeball on the screen, so it kind of looks like they're appearing out of it. So we just have to create the path name or add the path name to that. So that's in our assets folder, and then it's slash Pokeball dot, I believe it's a PNG. Okay, and then the last thing we need for an image is alt text, and this is for accessibility purposes. So this is going to be Pokemon sprite image is what I'm going to call that. And a sprite is just like a little pixelated image, something used usually for like video games. So that's pretty descriptive. So now we have our div that contains our image in there as well. Okay. And then we need to build out this portion here. So if we notice, I'm going to go up here because it's a little cleaner. So there's sort of like an outer container and then an inner container. And then there's these two pieces here. Okay. So I'm going to build those from going from the outside in. and you can just follow along with me. So the first thing that we have is an outer container. Okay, so we're going to use, again, a div for that. And I'm going to start labeling these with the IDs just so that we can keep it organized and see what everything is. So we're going to call this our attacks container because it contains all of our attacks. Okay. And inside of that, we have two different attacks. We have this one, and we're going to actually do this this color differentiation with just CSS, and you'll see that in the next video. But we need to build these two sections. So we have our attack 1, and we're going to call this attack 2 on the bottom, right? Because we have two of them. So I'm going to build the first one, and it's going to be a div. Okay. And then that div contains basically two different things. It has this top part, which has two pieces, right? A headline and some paragraph text, and then this bottom paragraph. Okay, so you can think of it like there's a container around these two, right? We can see that with the blue line here. And then the white elements are text elements, okay? So just to recall, we have our outer container, and then we have our first attack. So we're gonna build that out. Okay, and our first attack has a container that contains the title and the HP. So I'm going to use an H2 for the title. Okay, I'm just going to type that there. And then a P for, this is actually the accuracy, sorry, not the HP. Okay, so I'm going to call this ID is going to be attack 1, so we know that's the first one. And then this ID is attack 1 underscore, and this will be title underscore container. So that's the container for the title. And then below that, we're going to have a paragraph, just a P tag, that's going to have attack description. And actually, let me add the IDs for all of these as well. So ID equals, and this is attack 1 underscore title. This one is going to be ID equals attack 1 underscore accuracy. Okay, all these titles should make sense. And then here, this is going to be ID equals attack, oops, got to put it inside the quotes, attack 1 underscore DESC, which stands for description. Okay, so we have our container, right? The outer container. And inside of that is a inner container for the title. That's this. And we have our title and our accuracy in there. And then below those, we have the description. Now, we created one of those, so now we can really just copy this and paste it, right? So we are duplicating it for the second one, but we want to change all of these attack 1 to attack 2. There we go. So now they're differentiated. Okay, pretty cool. So now we have our attacks container. That's all complete. And the last thing that we have to do here is a container for our abilities, right? So attack, defense, and speed. And so I'm going to create another div, and I'm going to call this, the ID is going to be abilities container. Okay. And then I'm just going to make like one of them, and then I can duplicate it like I did for these. So I'm going to make this one. So it's a container that has an H3 and then a P underneath of it. So I'm going to create a container, and then we'll have an H3, which will be, let's just call it attack for right now. And then the P will be some number. Let's just do 12. Okay, so we have each of those. And for this one, because these are basically all the same, I can actually use a class, and I'm going to call this ability, right? Because all three of these are going to be pretty much the same. But we can also add an ID just so that if we need to differentiate them, we can. So I'm going to do ability 1. And for this ID, I'm going to do ability 1 underscore name. And for this one, it's going to be ability 1 underscore value. And there we go. So now we can just duplicate this twice. 1, 2. So we have those, and I'm going to change some of the things here. So this one, all these 2s, or all these 1s should be 2s. And if you're wondering how I'm doing this, I'm just clicking while holding Alt, and then I can select multiple areas. And I'm going to change from attack to defense and speed. Pretty cool. All right, and there you go. We have built out all of the HTML for this. We've done everything on the card here, so you should be all set up for the next video where we're actually going to style it. If we take a look at our Chrome extension right now, it probably looks very weird because we basically set up everything, but we have not styled it at all. So it's going to look strange, but in the next video, we're going to turn this into what you see on the screen here, which is going to be pretty cool. We're going to add all the styles so you can see all the colors, make sure all the fonts are the right size and boldness and all that good stuff. So I will see you on the next video.